I want to say I appreciate the four of you here that hit that like button. I know on this video here we had 9 people that wanted to support, but now we're back at 4. All right, so I want to say thank you. I really want to say thank you for that because I did a lot of annotation on this chart, on these charts here. Preferably that 1 minute. I went all the way from when it started all the way to when it closed at 5 o'clock, and four of you definitely appreciated that, and I want to say thank you to you guys. So most viewed videos here, live threshold, how far the candle pull back and resume, and then the price action trend. You just need to be able to count to 10. All right. Price action method, I use the majority principle, which states that the minority is compelled to follow. That chart scale, I teach you how to read your hard right edge so you don't have to look left. All right. And I want to say this to you guys. Oftentimes, and this is true in life, I want to say this to you. I heard a smart man say this one day. The people you'll do the most for will appreciate you the least. I just want to make sure I say that. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at this chart first. Let's take a look at this chart first. I didn't annotate it. I didn't. And of course, this is the volume benchmark institutional bar color. All right, you just want them to trap that green under a high. It's a little simpler to interpret than the climax chart. I'll show you that because I was posting that on social media. I'll show you that as well. All right, so they got under there. They went down. They was trapping the green. They didn't trap any red. They're still down. They got here, and this is like 6:30 in the morning. Here's the red. They trapping that red in that bottom. They're going up. This is the bottom, and then of course they just kept trapping red and kept continuing up. And you can see what's happening. They're holding the green bars and just wanting to continue. All right, so they're trapping red and they're up on the high, and then they trap this green in here when they blew past it. All right, when they clipped that, they're up there, and then of course they drop down again. They turn the corner. They're up here with red, and they went past it. All right, but they begin to kind of slide down on you. Not trapping green though. All right, and then of course they ended up turning the corner. Now they put the green in there, and it's under this high. They leaned over, but they did not supposed to break that bottom because that'll create a whole nother experience. And then they popped up. Now here's that price. All right. Now here's that price that I gave you guys back on the 10th. All right. Think about this 2 weeks ago. So it's not hindsight because remember this price was above the market. I know a lot of people have an issue with hindsight. No, you guys go back to the first video I put here 2 weeks ago. That was above the market. I told you it may be a problem. And then of course here, trapped in the green. And so they have spent the afternoon coming down. And let's hope that that won't last long. I did tell them on, well, I can just show you the hourly chart of that. All right, yeah, we're going to do that. All right, so now I'm going to show you the climax chart. Again, I tried to put this on just the social platforms there. And you can just follow along. You know what's happening with this. I told you guys on yesterday's video. Get them to trap the blue bars to go down, so you get the blue bars in there, and of course you want them to blow past them. All right, it's a little bit more frequent here, and you can even come closer to the pivots. All right, I want to say that it's a little different than just they went past it and you can just kind of hide, at the extreme. Here you can get right behind them once they blow past them and just kind of go in and ride it down. All right, so it got a little messy right here because they clipped that blue bar, but they didn't stay down. They popped up again. All right, so they clipped it. You can see it here. They clipped it, pulled up to that pivot, dropped down, but then they popped up and kind of cleaned them out, and then ended up back down. Now when they turn this corner, that's that low there. They put that pink bar in there and they blew past it, and then that began, the onslaught. And then they kind of did the same thing right here. They blew past that pink, leaned under that. Turned the corner, came back with the pink here. I just put that little box there. I'll move it so you can see that it's pink. Let me just move it here. See, it's a pink bar in there with the red bar, but it's a pink bar, and that's what you want to trap. Well, magenta. And then they blew past that, and they did it again. They're on their way. All right, they did it again. They're on their way, and that's what you want to see. And of course, they got up here and they turned the corner, and this is when I posted it again. That was the second post. I hope you're keeping up with this. That was the second post. This was the first one. All right, I want you to notice when I'm posting it. All right, I'm posting it, and then of course it runs. And then here, I forgot to come into this workspace to go ahead and show them this because I use black charts now. I'm trying to preserve my eyes just a little bit, but when I'm delivering content online, I want to make sure you guys can see the chart. And so I started with white charts and I got so used to it. But here recently I've been going to the eye doctor. I want to make sure I preserve my eyes. And so here they placed that blue bar, and as you can tell, they lifted up, but then they dropped down, and then gave you a little bit more, and then they turned the corner. But this time, the pink is not inside the shoulder. However, the blue is coming in, and they're not willing to blow back past it, and so they ride it up. And here's the pink up here. They blow past it, but then they lean over. Here's the blue, and they just grind it down, and then that pink came right in there, and they went past that, and then they began to move up, and then they leaned over. Keep in mind it's blue in here, and if they're still beneath this high, you don't need them to blow that pivot. And then of course they popped up, and then blue came in at that top. That's them exiting. Came right back to that price line that I gave you guys. Let me do this, make sure you guys can see it. I don't know why it defaults to this. Let's make it blue so you can see it. So yeah, they came right back to that same price again from the 10th. I gave this to you on the 10th, and I thought that just maybe they would try to hold this market down for the rest of the month, but they managed to get back up here, which is a good thing. So they should make it through this high by the end of the month. So be prepared for it. All right. So and then of course here's the blue on this side. Okay, this under the high, and here we go. We're trapping it. All right. So the moment we blow past it, they were slick with this one. They went under there, just poked their head slightly above it, and then that's when they went on and took off to the downside. And here we are here. So when it comes up, I know the pink in here, but if they are to jump up, I want to go ahead and tell you this. If they are to jump up, this is weak, so they should be able to get back through it. All right, so I do appreciate the four of you. I want to say that I really appreciate the four of you that have been sticking with me since the 10th. All right, I appreciate you guys for doing that. All right, so they had a slight reaction here. I put it on. I told them that they would come back through this low, and they did. They came back through this low. That's on the platform here. I'm not even gonna worry about it. You take my word for it. I told them that they'll come back, and they did. They have went under it because I told them that they should, and they did. And of course they went under there. That's why you're seeing that reaction there, and they got up there to that same price that I gave you guys, and then of course they're leaning over. And then they made this zone yesterday. I forgot in yesterday's video they had this. They had this. I just forgot to add it. So you can go back in yesterday's video. They had retested it, and there's the reaction before they had left the zone. They had came back down with that red bar after this bar here, and there's your signal. It's not a two-bar setup because it's not a two-bar setup. It's a one-bar setup. I can guarantee you that. All right, because the two-bar setup has something else going on with it. All right, I just say it that way. Now, when they came back down, that's the test. They did not want to break that, and then they took off. So that's the one bar setup. Now, on the social media platforms, I told them this price here, that you don't want them to close under that. All right. And so then they ran down there, and of course, they came right back up. All right. They came right back up. So the low of that bar there was 495.75, and I told them that when they was trying to turn. And so as they were trying to turn, I saw them doing that blue bar on that chart. I said, okay, yeah, they might want to try to run at that price, but they need not close. I did make them aware before it was all over with, and that's why I'm here now to let you know they probably will close under this price. You don't want them to, but they might. They might just do that. Let me take a look at that 1 minute one more time. I'm gonna see what's down here. Yeah, they can come through this bottom down here on this 1 minute, so they can definitely do that. They're back here, but they're back here. I mean, it'll be a challenge. I'll just say that because they had a couple pivots before that that was absolute nonsense. All right, and they even reached. Remember yesterday's video? They had reached down towards it, but then they turned around. And again, they should be back to below that, but possibly after they run the high. All right, I want to say it that way. All right, so I do suspect that they're going to get through this, and yeah, a little bit lower. So just be on the lookout for it. That's all. Try to tell you guys where they're going before they even get there, man. Not hindsight, not indicators. I'm ahead of the candlesticks. All right, just want to make sure I say that out loud. I'm ahead of the candlesticks, and that's why I document these videos and make sure I leave the text and stuff on the chart. Tell you what price should do, so you'll already know before price get there. I want to make sure I say that because it's important that people know I'm not like these other people online, man. They do a lot of stuff that I'm just not for. I want to make sure you get the right information. All right, so here we go. Let's go back to where we had left off really quickly here. I want to make sure I do this. We left off here. All right, it was right here we had left off. All right, and of course I told you they should be able to make that. If they're not going to go down, if they're not going to go down in yesterday's video, if they're not going to go down. You have to aim up. That's all. It's just that simple, and they should get there. And they made it. And I did tell you that they can go here because they made this pattern here, and they had begun to stall out. And they got there before I got off, but they had begun to stall out. But all being one and the same, they were up. Okay, so that's most important there. And if you're new to trading, it's really simple. It's not complicated. Please let me refresh this, see what we got going on. Okay, I wonder why the color wasn't coming in there. All right, so if you're new to trading, I want to make sure I tell you this. It's on all of the charts. It's on every last one of them. All right, I just tried to put that there for you, as well as that chart scale, so you'll know how price should behave. All right, so how it should behave. This is a simple diagram. The most important thing I want you to pay attention to is this. Let me go over this before I say anything else. If you're new to trading and you don't know nothing about trading, the first thing that I would encourage you to do is grasp this concept. You get a bar, it finishes, the bar closes. If the next candle is moving up and down, which it will be, I really want you to pay attention to just slightly outside the mid of that bar. Just pay attention to that. If they exceed the mid of the bar by too much, and I provide a tool that will outline what's too much, what's too far. But you don't need that. I'm going to go in and tell you. It's just slightly outside the mid of the bar. If they exceed the mid of that bar by too much, there's a very high chance that they will run your bar. It's not a guarantee. They could not do it, but I just want to make sure that you understand that if you're a new trader beginning, and even people that's been doing it for years, if you're still having trouble with this, I want to make sure I say this to you. If you do not master this aspect of taking entries, almost everything else that's on the channel will not work for you. So I want to make sure I say that. All right. So make sure that you pay attention to how they trade into your bar. That's important. And there's some other, of course, some other things, and I mentioned it before. If they're outside your close, yeah, it should close in your direction. A lot of people, mistake it being in this direction as an opportunity if they're having trouble with trading. If you're not someone that's having trouble with trading, this makes sense. But if you're having trouble with trading, why don't you let it get outside the close? Just let it get outside the close and then go for something reasonable. What is reasonable? It's a 1 bar setup. Go for 1 bar distance. Go for half of that until you get familiar with fluctuations. And then once you master fluctuations, going for half the distance, then pursue more. All right, so I want to make sure I say that before I even move forward. All right, now here, once you do that, this will already take care of itself if you can master what I just said. This midpoint, this is going to get you where you need to be without being in conditions that's unfavorable. This midpoint exceeding that high is important. This midpoint exceeding the low, very, very critical. All right, very critical to keep you out of what doesn't make sense. Stuff like this, and we talked about that on yesterday, maybe a couple scenarios up here. I'm seeing one right here. You have, actually there's a lot of them, and I did say that. You can have 4 or more sitting inside of that bar. Bodies, just bodies, sitting inside that bar. And this will help you stay out of the way of that. I want to make sure I say that. Majority compels the minority to follow. They have no choice. They're forced to do so. And I want to make sure that you have the force behind your trade to send it right into the direction that you plan to trade in. That's all. So when you look at the chart and you see all of the red bars and they just kept going, you would do this. You would take that scenario and you would just do this. And rest assured, if it's going to work, it's going to get there. They may stall out a little bit, but it'll get there. And if it don't work, remember what I told you. All right, so here it is. I'm going to do it again. You should not be on my playlist unless you can master this. Don't even consider it. Don't come to my playlist unless you can get this to work. I want to go ahead and say that to you. If you can't master knowing how far it's supposed to go, and when it comes into the bar, because this is knowing how far it's supposed to go. If you take that 1 bar setup and it won't give you that 1 bar, don't try for the 2 bar setup. It's no need. You got to master 1 bar first. All right. We always want to do things in the correct order. So know how far the bar can come into, the bar can trade back into your bar. because your bar with that threshold is your money. It's to protect you. So you need to know how far is too far. So that's really vital, very vital that you understand that. I just need to say that to you. I hope you're listening. Whoever needs that, I hope you listen. How far they trade into your bar is so vital because it's your money that's at stake. You got to pay attention to it. All right, so now I told you that they did not supposed to close beneath that 28,461.75. I also told you that these guys are I don't know why this thing do this. That these guys are absolutely sitting up here, and if they're going to want to force the market down, they will do so. And then I told you that they're down here, and if they absolutely do not have any intent on moving this market down, they will very much not get to this price at all. So I just tried to frame out the last 2 weeks. I tried to frame it out for you, and again, I gave you that price there. There's that response on that hourly the moment that they came within a couple ticks of it, and that was on the 10th. All right, so I want to make sure I provide information that's simple, that's not complicated, and be sure to go back to the video from 2 weeks ago and each video, subsequent video after that, and you'll see that I'm telling you before signals print. All right, the signals work. Now here's another thing I'll tell you. If you're someone that don't have a great deal of capital, I know a lot of you have to start with prop firms. Now this is just me being biased to my indicators, that's all, the ones I've made, the ones I trust. All right, sometimes you may just want to go to a bigger time frame. The threshold will be further away. Remember, we just talked about that one bar and that threshold. If you're working with smaller time frames, the threshold is relatively close. You may want to go to something larger. Use one contract of a micro and hold your trade. Now with this signal, we've been going over it. We don't want them closing behind the bar. It's a 1 bar plot, or occasionally it's a 2 bar plot. But you can do that with any bar. But I encourage you to go with a higher time frame. We had reactions. Well, they didn't reach. Well, they did with this bar. They did, because that's a 1 bar signal. They reached into it and they dropped. That's a 1 bar signal. Look how far it went. We had a reaction here when they came up. They popped up and then they went down. We had a reaction on this one as well. You can see they came up, they went down. Then they turned the corner. You don't want them passing the signal. That's a signal. Okay. They turn the corner. They passing the signal. They're going down even further. Here come the green one. So 1 bar, 1 bar. You try 1 bars. That's all. Just try 1 bar, a 1 bar indicator. Just try it. You don't have to use 2 bar setups if that's not your thing. That's why I really want you to make sure you digest that. All right. So that's my time with you guys. Again, if you need additional information, I do provide that, but do not come to my playlist unless you can digest what's free on the channel. I don't want you on my playlist unless you can digest what's free. Really important that I say that to you. All right. Again, thank you, the 4 of you. The 4 of you. Thank you so much. Again, those that you do the most for will appreciate you the least. I wish you all the best with your trading. Take care.